The shocking truth about coffee. How it haunts your spirit at 3 a.m. forever. In the dim light of a midnight kitchen, a forgotten cup of cold brew sat ominously on the counter, steam long gone, replaced by an eerie chill. Unbeknownst to its maker, this seemingly innocent drink was a tangled thread woven into a web of dark mystery and enigma. Whispers of dread echoed through the small town as those who sipped it at the witching hour claimed it bore a curse. They reported shadows dancing in the corners of their eyes, strange murmurs in the dark, and an unshakable sensation of being watched. What was behind this odd phenomenon? Was it merely caffeine-induced paranoia or something far darker lurking beneath the surface? Every drinker felt a thrill of fear with that last sip. Every night, odd dreams turned to unsettling realities. One woman, Linda, swore she awoke with a tightness in her chest, the palpable sense that a ghostly presence hovered just beyond her bed. Another man, Derek, trembled as he recounted waking to find the outline of a figure standing at the foot of his bed, bathed in a ghostly light, eyes glinting with malice. The locals began sharing stories, tales of how the coffee was sourced from a cursed plantation, where sorrow had seeped into the very soil, haunting those who dared to brew it. But this was no ordinary coffee. People whispered about the secret ingredient, the essence of the midnight oil, mixed with a hint of something sinister. Each cup promised energy but delivered an unsettling rush that felt like a knife slipping into the soul. And the moment the clock struck 3, the phenomena escalated. Those unfortunate enough to brew a fresh cup found themselves gripped with panic. Were they slowly losing their minds? Or was something far worse at play? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the town now buzzing with fear and rumors, suspicions pointed toward the old coffee shop. Marissa, the eccentric owner known for her bizarre art and mismatched furniture, appeared eerily serene, even as the clouds gathered and whispers grew louder. Was she the source of this shadowy phenomenon? Or was she simply caught in something much larger than herself? Each pair of eyes turned towards her, waiting for answers that slipped like sand through fingers. As the clock inched closer to 3, the town collectively held its breath. One decisive moment could unravel everything, or unleash an even greater terror. What awaited them at that stroke? The truth was more haunting than the coffee itself, something brewing beneath the surface, and it was ready to rise. The town was a powder keg, tension swelling under the facade of everyday life. As the clock's hands crept closer to the witching hour, anticipation wreaked havoc on nerves. Marissa felt the weight of the gazes upon her, like invisible chains binding her to the spot behind the counter of her cafe. Did they think she was the culprit? That she conjured this menacing energy with a sprinkle of pixie dust and a dash of caffeine? Maybe this is all a misunderstanding, she whispered to herself, the words hanging in the air like a desperate prayer. No answer came, just the rhythmic ticking of the clock as it neared its midnight rendezvous with chaos. Outside, the streets echoed with muted whispers. Neighbors gathered in clusters, drifting from one story to another, bones chilled from fear of what might awaken at the strike of 3. Some clutched steaming cups of coffee, oblivious to the growing dread that surrounded them. Others stared at the darkened windows of the cafe as if expecting shadows to emerge from within. A collective shiver raced through the crowd. Then there was a scream. A raw, guttural cry that shattered the heavy silence, sending a jolt through the assembled townsfolk. It came from Mrs. Gibbons, an elderly woman with a passion for knitting and a heart that fluttered like a dying bird. Her frail hands shook as she pointed towards the coffee shop, eyes wide with terror. "It's in there. I saw it," she stammered, backing away into the safety of her daughter's arms. The others leaned forward, straining to catch a glimpse of whatever horror she had seen. Marissa felt her heart thunder in her chest. What had Mrs. Gibbons seen? A specter? A shadow? Was this the moment that secrets would spill from the cursed coffee? Fear gripped her throat, tightening until she could barely breathe. Moments ticked by like years as the distant town clock struck 2. Only 1 hour remained. The whispers grew louder, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. "We need to confront her," someone shouted, emboldened by the fear in the air. Derek, still haunted by his encounter, stood at the front of the group, his face pale, eyes darting back to that spectral figure. "I swear I saw it staring right at me. It knows our fears. It feeds on them." His voice cracked, resonating with the truth everyone feared but couldn't dismiss. Then, with a shrill clarity, the clock chimed again, now marking 2:30. An electric nervous energy washed over the crowd. Individuals began to shift, stepping closer to the cafe as if compelled by an unseen force. It was as if the coffee itself were calling them, luring them into its sinister embrace. Marissa felt it too, the invisible strings of fate tightening around her. And as the clock ticked closer, she finally understood. The coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a window to something that begged to be unleashed, something that had been trapped for too long. But that would mean exposing herself as the unwilling gatekeeper of this dark secret. The hands of the clock quaked toward 3, and at that exact moment, the lights in the cafe flickered violently, plunging everything into darkness. Gasps echoed among the townsfolk as a force rippled through the air, palpable and breathing, as if the very essence of the coffee had risen to claim its victims. Marissa's heart raced. She was left with a choice: to hide behind the counter or stand up and face whatever horror awaited her. With one rushed breath, she sprang toward the door, but a sharp pain shot through her chest, freezing her in place. What exactly had she brewed? What was about to surface as the clock struck 3? The truth was on the cusp of revelation, but how far-reaching would the shockwave be? The air grew thick, heavy with a dread that clung to Marissa like a shroud. Her heart thundered as the lights flickered once more, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced across the walls, as if the very cafe had come alive. The murmurs outside transformed into fearful gasps, a muffled chorus tainted by panic. "Marissa, get out!" someone screamed, although she couldn't tell who. All she could focus on was the searing pain radiating from her chest, a vicious reminder of the decision she had to make. Peering into the darkness ahead, she felt something shift. It was more than just a shadow. It was a presence. Something stirred behind the counter, pooling at her feet. Something she had never expected to see: the dark, swirling remnants of the coffee she had brewed, now trickling like ink into the air. Time slid forward, and the clock struck 3. A scream erupted from the crowd outside, sharp and piercing, causing Marissa's blood to run cold. "Look out!" shouted Derek, his voice a mixture of rage and fright. Yet she remained frozen, rooted to her spot. The weight of the energy in the room pressed her down, and she could almost hear her heartbeat sink with the ominous tick of the clock. From the depths of the cafe's darkness, twisted faces began to emerge, twisted by torment and fear, haunting figures she could barely comprehend. Their hollow eyes locked onto hers, carving into her soul, as if demanding explanations for the horrors they endured. Marissa stumbled back, nearly losing her footing. What are you?" Her voice trembled, barely escaping her throat. They didn't respond with words, but she understood their message. The coffee was alive, harboring their pain, feeding off her fear, and now they sought justice. Each figure flickered in and out of focus, caught between this world and the next, their expression conveying raw desperation. The weight of their grief pressed on her like a stone. Suddenly, a memory flashed into her mind: the cafe's opening day, the innocence of warm smiles, laughter, and childhood dreams. She recalled the stories the townsfolk had shared over cups of coffee, their personal struggles poured out, mixed in with the dark brew. And then it hit her hard. The coffee wasn't a curse. It was a collector of stories, secrets wrapped in sorrowful layers. All those conversations, all that light mixed with pain, a powerful concoction that had birthed the spirits now haunting her cafe. They were trapped right here, demanding her acknowledgement. As her thoughts spiraled into clarity, the spirits surged forward, merging into a whirling vortex, a desire for release woven into their ghostly forms. Marissa's heart raced, pounding in her ears like a drum. She needed to act. They deserved peace, and so did she. "I'm sorry," she cried out into the darkness. "I never meant for this to happen." But would that be enough? The air shimmered around her, the spirits twisting closer, their faces morphing into sympathetic masks, yet still filled with the pervasive ache of sadness. She realized they weren't there to harm her. They wanted understanding. They needed recognition of the pain that lingered long after their lives had faded. Then, with a sudden burst, they howled, the noise hitting her like a wave. It echoed through the streets, where the townsfolk stumbled back in horror. Marissa felt the pull of desperation fusing with an overwhelming sense of urgency. With trembling hands, she grasped her favorite coffee mug from behind the counter. "I will honor you," she declared, raising the cup high as fear washed over her. "I promise to tell your stories." But before she could process the magnitude of her commitment, the spirits surged with a force that knocked her to the ground, blinding her with a brilliant light. In that moment, every ounce of her resolve was tested, and she felt herself slipping, caught between the living and the dead. What happened next was beyond comprehension, a cataclysm of shadows and light that threatened to consume everything. As she grasped for clarity, one thought anchored her. Was she brave enough to face the chaos she'd unleashed? And somewhere deep within, a single voice whispered, "Where there is darkness, there is often light." But would Marissa find that light? Or would the coffee and its lingering memories consume her whole? The clock continued to tick, and the line between reality and nightmare blurred dangerously close. Marissa's mind struggled to clear as the bright light enveloped her. All around her was chaos, a whirlwind of spectral faces spiraling into a gale of sorrow. She felt weightless, suspended in a state of confusion that teetered on the edge of madness. The beauty of the cafe shattered, tables splintered, chairs clattered to the ground, and the sickly sweet aroma of coffee mixed with something far more sinister. The spirits, desperate and howling, filled the air with their collective anguish. Marissa's heart pounded as she tried to gather her thoughts. She had promised them recognition, but they needed more than those words. They were seeking a reckoning. The voices fused into a cacophony, echoing around her, rising and falling like turbulent waves. "Help us!" they cried in unison, their once twisted faces softening into expressions of hope. "We are forgotten." In the midst of their turmoil, Marissa felt a flicker of something, the connection she had with each story, every laugh, every tear shared over coffee. The memories surged within her, a powerful force that sparked as the spirits closed in. "Tell me your stories," she screamed against the tempest. "I'll give you a voice. I swear it." Just then, a figure broke away from the swirling mass, approaching her with a gentler determination. It was the face of an old woman, familiar yet ghostly, with eyes that spoke of decades of despair and wisdom alike. "You must understand, dear child," the spirit whispered, her voice threading through the chaos. "This cafe is our final refuge, a sacred ground where our truths dwell. Your light must shine into our darkness." Marissa knelt, feeling the coolness of the floor against her palms. She was terrified yet determined. "I will try. I will tell every story, honor every soul." With those words, she felt a surge of energy unlike anything before. The spirits hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her sincerity, and then drew closer, feeding off her conviction. The light brightened, swirling around the cafe in intricate patterns, framing Marissa within a ring of glimmering hope. But the clock continued to tick ominously, reminding her that time was slipping away. The shadows elongated further, threatening to swallow her whole. "You must bind your promise with truth," the old woman's spirit insisted. "There are stories buried in darkness and pain. Only then will we be free." Suddenly, Marissa recalled a story she once heard from a young man who had dreams of becoming an artist. He was burdened by loss, haunted by failure, and had poured his dreams into every cup served. With her heart racing, she closed her eyes and focused, letting his story take shape in her mind. Daniel, she spoke aloud, her voice rising above the chaos. You never let your light shine. Your pain was your art. As his name escaped her lips, the apparition of Daniel materialized beside the woman, a swirl of mixed emotions. The cafe around her brightened momentarily, a mosaic of memories kicking to life. Each spirit basked in the warmth of Marissa's words, their agony slowly ebbing away. But then the visions began to warp again. They twisted into darkened figures, merging with an emerging haze of dread. Not all truths are easy, some are steeped in darkness, they chanted. The persistent ticking of the clock hammered louder, reminding her of the growing strain of their plight. What is it you fear? She implored, desperation threading through her voice. You are not trapped. Let me help you. I will fight for you if only you trust me. In that twilight moment, Marissa stood at a crossroads, teetering between the hope she ignited and the darkness that loomed large. Would her promise be enough, or were the shadows of regret too steeped in their hearts to ever see the light? And then, just as suddenly, the ground beneath her trembled as if rumbling with the weight of unresolved stories demanding their release. Marissa gasped as the fabric of the cafe began to unravel, a soft whisper stalking through the air. Will you sacrifice everything for our truth? As the walls of her reality began to crumble, she braced for what was to come. The chaos swelled around her, and with her heart racing, she took a deep breath. Would she discover the depths of their despair? Or would the darkness pull her under, leaving her nothing but a whisper in their history? The ground vibrated, sending shivers up Marissa's spine as the once cozy cafe morphed into a nightmarish echo of its former self. The air turned colder, wrapping around her like a wet blanket. Shadows danced near her, their whispers spiraling into a fevered chant. Release us, they cried, their voices rising and falling, swelling like an impending storm. Marissa's heart hammered in her chest. I'm here. I'm ready, she shouted, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. She felt small and insignificant, a mere flicker in the overwhelming darkness. The weight of countless memories pressed down on her, each one tinged with despair. Then came a low rumbling, a sound that vibrated through her bones. Chairs scraped against the floor, like nails on a chalkboard. The spirits drew closer, their ghostly forms distorting in the chaos. The old woman, still guiding, reached for Marissa, her translucent fingers brushing against her arm. The stories they must be told, not just the sweet, but the bitter. With urgency coursing through her, Marissa focused on the gallery of faces surrounding her. I can hear you. Her voice trembled but grew stronger. Tell me, I will carry your truths. A new spirit emerged from the flood, a man in his 30s, shaking as if he bore the weight of an anchor. He wore a painter's smock, splattered with colors that shimmered in the chaos. His eyes, once bright with passion, now reflected a deep sorrow. It was Daniel. I was meant to create, he murmured, his voice barely a whisper amidst the storm. But fear held my brush. Regret shackled my heart. Marissa's spirit surged forward, and a heat blossomed in her chest. She stepped toward Daniel, fear dissolving into empathy. You let your heart speak for the world. Let me help you break the chains of your regret. Your truth is beautiful. As those words crossed her lips, the room flickered with warmth. Color splintered in the air, illuminating the cafe in a kaleidoscope, a connection forging between them. His tortured spirit flickered, wavering between darkness and light. The other spirits watched, their expressions shifting with longing. But then, without warning, the glimmer faltered. The cafe around them echoed with anguished cries, distorted images swirling into grotesque shapes. Not all are saved, they howled, anger slicing through the air. Some truths are too hidden, too ugly. Do you dare tread there? Marissa's heart sank. Tell me, what is the story? What depths must I brave? Sweat beaded on her brow as the tension grew palpable. The weight of their unresolved narratives hung over her, thick with fear and longing. "You must face your own darkness," the old woman said, her voice low, as if sharing a profound secret. "For your light can only shine through acceptance of all truths. What pain lies buried within you?" Marissa staggered under the sudden weight of her own memories, a childhood shadowed by loss and unfulfilled dreams, a heart beating wildly for acceptance. The reality crashed over her. In fighting for these lost souls, she may need to unveil her own undisclosed truths. With renewed determination, she breathed deeply, grounding herself against the shifting chaos. "Show me your darkness, and I will reveal my own," she declared, voice echoing against crumbling walls as she summoned her courage. Daniel stepped closer, eyes glistening with hope. "Then together, we may find the light," he replied, and for a moment, their visions merged, threading through each other's stories. But then the walls shimmered again, and the ground quaked beneath them. "Trust is fragile," the spirits warned, shadows looming larger. "Will you reveal your heart, or will we be lost forever?" Marissa's pulse quickened, and she realized one unshakable truth. Revealing her own darkness might be the key to setting them free. But would she sacrifice her own heart for the chance at redemption? The air thickened with anticipation, and before she could grasp what it meant, the ground beneath them surged with energy. Before she could respond, a blinding light enveloped her, and with it, an echo of a haunting question pierced through the noise. "Are you ready to face your truth?" As the cafe carved itself into a shadowy realm, Marissa stood at the edge of her own reckoning. Would she emerge victorious, or would her own struggles swallow her whole? Marissa felt the blinding light intensify, enveloping her entirely as her surroundings faded. She was flung into a different place, one that swirled with the shapes and sounds of an intimate memory, her grandmother's living room. The walls were painted a soft cream, with lace curtains fluttering in an unseen breeze. Marissa's heart raced as familiar scents wrapped around her. Freshly baked cookies mingled with lavender. It was a haven from the chaos. But as she stepped further inside, the warmth soured into something darker. The cookies crumbled to ash, and the scent of lavender turned acrid. Shadows loom in every corner, flickering in and out, whispering her name in a haunting chorus. "Marissa, Marissa, enough," she yelled, clenching her fists. "Show yourselves." From the swirling shadows emerged a figure, a young girl, no more than 7, with big, pleading eyes and tangled hair. It was her younger self, the innocent version of Marissa, who still clung to the memories of happier times. "Help me," the girl whimpered, her voice laden with despair. "Why are you crying?" Marissa knelt, feeling a sharp pain in her chest. "What's wrong?" The little girl glanced around, the shadows closing in. "They don't want you to remember. They want you to forget." A shiver crawled up Marissa's spine. Forget what? But deep down, even she knew. They wanted her to forget the moments of betrayal, the fiercely contested arguments. The biting words echoed too loudly. They sought to bury feelings of guilt too heavy to carry, and promises left broken. The wind swirled, lifting the shadows high. "Face your truth." The old woman's voice rang out again, potent with authority. "To help them, you must confront your past. Accept your darkness." Marissa's heart pounded. Tremors of fear coursed through her body, but she pressed onward. "If you want me to face this, then let me see what you are hiding." In an instant, her surroundings shifted. She was thrust into her childhood memory of a family gathering, the laughter and smiles stark against an undercurrent of tension. Her mother, frail and worn, yet smiling as she poured coffee for everyone. But Marissa remembered the truth shrouded underneath the storm brewing in her mother's eyes as she composed herself, hiding the pain of loneliness and regret. The image flickered, revealing her father arguing over finances, frustration consuming him. Marissa's heart ached. "I don't want this," she cried, trembling. "This hurts." The shadows recoiled slightly, as Marissa stood firm and strong. "But it's my truth. All of it." Acceptance washed over her, and she recalled the last moments with her mother, the tears, the goodbyes, the guilt of wishes left unspoken. The girl watched, eyes wide. "You're brave, brave?" "I'm terrified," Marissa whispered. But I won tea, let fear keep me silent. With gritted teeth, Marissa sent a wave of warmth through the darkness, embracing her past with all its imperfections. I'm ready to carry both the sweetness and the bitter. Show me their truths. Suddenly, the room pulsated with light, the shadows transforming into an ethereal crowd, silent yet entranced. Faces from the cafe appeared, intertwining with her memories, echoing her resolve. We can be freed, they chorused, filling the room with hope and despair alike. But as the light brightened, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath her, fissures splintering across her once safe living room. Not all will follow you. The whispers turned into screams, cracking the walls of Marissa's past. Darkness seeped through the cracks as the weight of the spirits bore down, pulling her back into the chaos. This is not done. They howled as she struggled to regain her footing. Marissa felt the desperate pull of her past and the uncanny pressure of their collective pain. Would she be able to help them make peace? Or would her own truth drag her down? Marissa, Daniel's voice called, filled with urgency. Trust in the light, but beware the shadows. As the ground quaked, she grasped for the connection with him, and the shadows reached out, ravenous, hungry for her surrender. Marissa's pulse thundered in her ears. The weight of this moment pressed against her like a vice, as she teetered between the worlds of the living and the departed. Are you ready to sacrifice everything for the truth? And as the shadows threatened to consume her, one question lingered, vibrating with energy and consequence. Could she handle the truth herself? The shadows were an ocean, crashing over Marissa with a weight she couldn't comprehend. Desperation clawed at her, urging her to fight against the pull. No, she gasped, her voice barely audible above the tumult. But the darkness twisted around her, tendrils of anguish latching onto her limbs, dragging her deeper into despair. Remember, you must remember, the little girl cried, her tiny face etched with fear that mirrored Marissa's own. The truth is your anchor. It will bring them peace. In an act of will, Marissa forced her way upward, grappling with the voices and memories swirling through her mind. The specters of her family began to emerge again, flickering like flames in the wind, real and raw. She saw her mother's gentle smile falter during that last dinner, the tears escaping just before the lights dimmed. No more running away, she screamed, and the ground beneath her shook in response. She didn't want to be a passive observer anymore. Marissa focused on every memory, each smile, each frown, the warmth and the sting of their love interwoven. Show me the truth, she cried again, her voice now a commanding force. Light burst forth, bright as the sun. Shadows lunged back, screeching in terror. Marissa stood tall, the warmth enveloping her like an embrace, emboldening her spirit. She could feel Daniel's presence, a steady heartbeat anchoring her amidst the chaos. Then, a figure emerged from the light, her mother. Marissa gasped as her eyes locked onto the fleeting visage. Mom! Her mother's eyes, filled with anguish yet glimmering with hope, seemed to pull Marissa in. You've been so brave, my love. You don't need to be afraid anymore. It's time to let go of the pain that binds you. How can I can't lose you again. Marissa cried, but deep down, she knew this wasn't just about her mother. It was about healing, about forgiveness, about facing her own failures and regrets. You carry my love. You always have. You need to forgive us for yourself, her mother replied, as the light around them began to shift and pulse. Marissa felt the threads of her past weaving tighter into a tapestry of clarity. The shadows roared, angry and insistent, their whispers growing frantic. You are not alone, they shrieked, echoing in a cacophony as the room seemed to crack around them. Let them go, Marissa. They cannot hold you. Daniel's voice urged her again, louder than ever before. She turned, catching a glimmer of his reassuring smile amongst the chaos. With a rush of determination, Marissa cast her hands before her, forcing the shadows back with a surge of energy that pulsed from her heart. I won't hide anymore. Light exploded around her, illuminating faces of family and friends interspersed with the shadows. Each face joyful yet aching reminded her of sacrifices, lost moments, and deep-rooted love. The souls within the shadows recoiled, suddenly vulnerable before her admission, trailing back to the dark corners like wisps of smoke. "Release!" she shouted, and the shadows writhed as if caught in a whirlwind. As they began to dissolve, the air felt sweeter, lighter, as if she were finally breaking free from their grasp. But then the tremors returned, fiercer than before. The walls of her childhood began to cave in, the brightness flickering, and doubt seeped into her veins. "Am I strong enough?" she muttered, feeling her resolve waver. "Only you can decide." Her mother's voice rang clear. "Choose your truth. Choose to rise above." With a surge of adrenaline, Marissa took one last look around, the echoes of memories entwining with hope. "I choose love," she cried, a defiant roar against the lingering darkness. The room erupted into a blinding light, consumed by a wave of warmth and tenderness. But as the brilliance enveloped her, something sinister lurked, an unfamiliar shadow lingering at the edge of her vision. Something she had yet to confront. What awaited her on the other side? And would the scars of the past be truly healed, or would new fears emerge to replace them? Everything faded to white, then suddenly ripped apart. Marissa was back in the familiar darkened room. But now it was different, alive with energy, swirling like a tempest around her. The walls pulsed, breathing in and out with her effort, amplifying her heartbeat. Every breath seemed vital and charged, each hasty inhalation stinging her lungs. "Where am I?" she gasped, disoriented. Figures emerged, blurry and shrouded in darkness. They beckoned to her, their silhouettes shadowy and distorted. She felt a looming sense of dread creeping back in. That when she remembered the familiar feeling of being lost, of the cold arms of despair wrapping around her like an old coat. She shuddered, trying to shake it off, as a single tear slipped down her cheek. "Mom?" she called, her voice trembling with uncertainty. But only silence answered, thickening the air around her, suffocating her resolve. Then, she heard it, a low, murky voice rising from the depths of her own insecurities. "You think you can escape?" it mocked, a shivering echo of the shadows that had once engulfed her. Marissa threw her fists in the air, her heart racing. "I will not let you control me," she shouted defiantly. "Control, such a fragile thing." The voice hissed, twisting her words into a bitter laugh. "You're still chained to your past. It will pull you back just like it always does." The shadows swirled tightly, almost like a living entity. They shifted and morphed into familiar faces. Her father, her sister, friends from years ago, all speckled across the darkness. Their expressions full of sorrow and regret. Their eyes were pools of pain, unsettling and accusatory. "No, you can't do this to me," Marissa cried out, trying to pull away. But unseen hands grabbed at her, toying with her resolve. "Do you hear them?" the voice whispered. "They call for you. They want you to join them in this endless cycle." Each shout of fear echoed around her. Memories danced like ribbons of mist, tethering her to the regrets she thought she could finally set free. She tried to pull them apart, separating the pain from the love, but it tangled tighter. Then, amidst the chaos, Daniel's visage broke through. He didn't speak, just looked at her with that familiar warmth that felt grounding. It was almost a touch, a flicker of honesty in the tempest of despair. "Fight, Marissa. You're stronger than this," his eyes urged. "Daniel," she cried, reaching out. The moment before their fingers touched was electric, but the shadows moved with force, casting him away. "No," she shouted, the despair tightening around her heart. With a sudden jolt of clarity, something deep within Marissa ignited. Love, that undeniable force. "No more fear," she declared, her voice sharp as glass now, cutting through the haze of darkness. "I choose to remember the joy, not just the pain. I choose to forgive, not to forget." The shadows shrieked, an agonizing sound that shook the very ground beneath her feet. The cacophony of voices swirled, their fragments dissipating like leaves in a storm. Marissa felt herself spinning, anchored only by her determination. And then, just as she thought the tide was turning, A figure loomed larger than the rest, a dark silhouette that she recognized all too well. It stepped forward, eyes burning with malice. It was the embodiment of her deepest fears. You thought you could escape, think again. Marissa's heart seized. The truth haunted her, but fear was no longer her master. Gritting her teeth, she screamed, "I will not bow to you." What power did her fear actually hold? The darkness surged like an angry wave, threatening to drown her again. But maybe this time would be different. And just as she braced for impact, a blinding light flared from her core, pushing against the tide, and for the first time, she felt ready to confront what lay hidden beneath her pain. Would her newfound strength be enough to confront the embodiment of her fear? Or was she heading for a painful confrontation that could shatter her once and for all? The darkness roared, a cacophony of sounds morphing into a single terrifying heartbeat. Marissa felt the heat of fear tightening around her throat. Yet, within her, the light pulsed, growing brighter with every desperate breath. "I won't let you win," she shouted, the words ringing with unexpected power. The shadow advanced, a figure cloaked in despair, features twisted into a cruel mask of mockery. "You think you can defy me?" It sneered, its voice a scraping whisper that sent chills down her spine. "You are nothing without your pain." But Marissa's heart pounded louder, giving her courage. She stood firm, rooted to the spot. "No, you are wrong," she declared, each word pushing back the darkness surrounding her. "I am not defined by you or my fear." The room trembled around her, responding to every ounce of her defiance. As she gazed into the figure's glowing eyes, memories surged past, moments of love, laughter, and joy. They flooded her mind, drowning out the pain. A surge of energy shot through her, wrapping around the darkness like a lasso. The shadows writhed, even as Marissa's light intensified. "You will never escape," the apparition screeched. But she knew that it thrived on her doubt. "You don't control me," she shouted, pulling from the depths of her heart. "You don't own my story." With an explosive flash, Marissa surged forward, tackling the shadow head-on. The collision was electric, a clash of light and darkness, reverberating like thunder. She felt the shockwave ripple through her, unearthing buried emotions she kept hidden: grief, anger, and a long-lost sense of freedom. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then the darkness swelled, becoming a kaleidoscope of swirling memories, each fragment a moment that brought her discomfort. She stumbled as anguish struck her like a blow, but she fought to cling to the good, the people who had truly loved her. "My past is a part of me," she cried, "but it will not control me." In that instant, she ripped apart the chains of regret that bound her, breaking free as she remembered the promise she made to herself long ago. The shadow shrieked, its form fracturing under the weight of her resolve, shards of darkness scattering like ashes. But in the chaos, a flicker of fear resurfaced. What if it came back? What if this victory was fleeting? A pit formed in her stomach, an echo of uncertainty that whispered darkly. Suddenly, against the backdrop of fading shadows, she saw another figure emerge. It was Daniel again, clearer now, his expression filled with concern. "Marissa, what is happening?" His voice was urgent, grounding her once more. "I'm fighting, Daniel. I'm fighting for all of it," she responded, her heart racing and resolve firm. Yet, that sense of victory was short-lived as the dark figure reformed, choking back with awe-inspiring speed. "You think you have won?" it howled, and all confidence felt as fragile as glass. Marissa took a step back, fear creeping back in like an unwelcome visitor. "What more could you do to me?" Her voice quavered with uncertainty. "You haven't even begun to understand your power," the shadow hissed, eyes blazing with malice. "You'll see, Marissa." This isn't over. The dark figure lunged, and just when she thought she would shatter under pressure, a surge of bright light exploded from her core again. But the leap toward triumph now felt like a precarious tilt on the edge of a cliff. Would this new truth save her or plunge her into an abyss deeper than before? Marissa clenched her fists tightly, determination coiling within her like a spring. She knew she had to embrace whatever lay ahead, no matter the stakes. The battle had just begun, but what would that mean for her? As the light clashed with the shadows, the dark figure rumbled with laughter. "You're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, my dear," it taunted, the darkness swallowing the light around it, plunging everything into uncertainty once more. Had she truly awakened the strength inside her? Or was she on the brink of an even greater confrontation that could alter everything? Only time would tell. The echoes of shadows writhed around Marissa like angry serpents, determined to drag her deeper into despair. But she stood rooted, trembling yet resolute, battered by the dark voices chanting her flaws and failures. The room held its breath, time suspended, weighed down by the unsaid, the unresolved. "Remember who you are." Daniel's voice pierced through the chaos, offering a beacon of light she desperately needed. His radiant form glowed brighter, a lifeline amidst the creeping shadows. "You must embrace your truth." Taking a deep breath, Marissa focused on the warmth of memories, letting them flow through her like a river of light. She thought of laughter shared, tears cried, and dreams deferred. The shadows shrank back, unsure against this onslaught of love and acceptance. "You're nothing," the dark figure shrieked again, all sharp edges and venom. "You are simply your grief." "No," Marissa roared, every syllable weighted with determination. "I am more than my pain. I am the joy, the laughter, the art. I will not be reduced." With that fierce declaration, the room tremored, a turbulent energy pulsing at her fingertips. It ignited something deep within her, a glowing embers of strength. The shadows writhed even more violently, their growls overlapping. As if recognizing the shift in her spirit, Marissa began to speak, each word an incantation binding her past to her now. "I loved fiercely. I shared stories that mattered. I tried, even when it hurt." The light expanded, bathing her surroundings in a warm golden glow. "No," the figure howled, its hideous form flickering, revealing glimpses of its former self, a figure shrouded in its truth. Marissa could see the fear and woundedness behind the rage, the scars of loss and neglect. It was her pain incarnate. Suddenly, she felt the urgency of the moment crashing into her consciousness. "I see you," she whispered, her voice steady. "I understand your pain. I embrace you." It was a radical shift, inviting the shadows closer instead of shunning them. The darkness roared, desperate to overwhelm her, but her heart surged with light, emboldened by acceptance. "Join me," she cried, sweeping her arms, the warmth amplifying. "Together we can heal." As if struggling against a powerful tide, the shadows paused, momentarily dumbfounded. For the first time, they flickered with uncertainty. Marissa pressed on, chasing away fear. "You can let go. You don't have to haunt me anymore." The figure hesitated, unsure, and for a moment, the darkness glimmered, revealing its vulnerability. "What if we lose our grip?" it whispered, trembling now. "For a chance at freedom," she affirmed, the light around her brightening exponentially. "For a chance to be whole." Tears streamed down her cheeks, carrying with them a catharsis that felt electric. The shadow shrank before her, pulsing as if it were merging into something beyond itself. "You believe in me," it murmured, the malice in its voice slipping into softness. "I believe in all parts of me," Marissa shouted, the triumph rising within her like a star. "Your pain shaped me, but it will not define me." Marissa felt the shadows transform, weaving through her, dark and light now intertwining without fear. There was a collision, a heart-stopping crescendo bursting through the fabric of anguish to reveal fragments of beauty hidden in the depths. Together, she breathed, energy spiraling into a mosaic of color all around them. The cafe returned, vibrant with life, shadows reshaping into familiar faces, now hopeful and alive. The spirits that once tormented her swirled in celebration, their pains shared, and the air thick with freedom. "I'm here," she whispered, allowing the spirits' tales to flow through her like music. "Your stories can finally be spoken." The memories fell into place, forgotten laughter, bundled love. Ties of struggle can now be acknowledged with tenderness. In a moment of stunning clarity, the shadows began to dissolve, absorbed into the light radiating from Marissa herself. Gasping for breath, she felt weightless, unchained, and anchored simultaneously. The clock ticked softly in. The background, a reminder that time would continue. But now Marissa knew she could choose how she would move forward. The cheers of spirits echoed, enveloping her with warmth and freedom. "You are brave." Daniel's voice rang true, radiating with love as they shimmered together, each healed by embracing their truths as the final remnants of darkness faded. Marissa stood there bathed in golden light, her cafe now alive with stories old and new. She smiled through tears of joy, knowing she would share every tale. "Hello, world," she whispered to the air, hope blooming within her. "It's time to brew something new." And so, as the sun broke through the horizon, illuminating what had once been a dark canvas, the cafe breathed anew, filled with laughter, connection, and the power of healing truths. It was here, amidst kindred souls, that light met darkness with understanding, a moment where the past would not haunt, but instead, guide to a brighter tomorrow. Now, you've come this far in the story, don't miss what's next. You need to subscribe now and smash that like button to let us know you love this journey. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories. What did you think of Marissa's transformation? And don't wait even one more second to share the story with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support makes all the difference, and together, we can keep this community alive and thriving.